Somewhere in your garage, behind the paint cans and the Christmas decorations, there might be a rusty old chainsaw you've been meaning to throw out for years. Before you drag it to the dump, you need to hear this. Because certain vintage chainsaws are now selling to collectors for hundreds, and in some cases, well over $1,000 each. One particular model, made decades ago, regularly changes hands for around $1,000, even in average dusty condition. And the strangest part? Most people have no idea this underground market even exists. They think an old saw is junk. Collectors know it might be treasure. Today I'm going to show you the 12 old chainsaws worth a fortune in 2026, exactly why the old ones were built better than anything you can buy today, and the simple trick to tell if the one sitting in your shed is worth real money. Here's what almost nobody realizes about chainsaws. The ones built in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s were made in a completely different world than the ones sold today. This was the golden age of American chainsaw manufacturing, an era collectors now call the muscle saw period. Back then, companies like McCulloch, Homelite, and Stihl were locked in an arms race to build the most powerful saws on Earth. They weren't trying to hit a price point at a big box store, they were trying to win. And to win, they built these machines out of die-cast magnesium and aluminum, with chrome-plated cylinders and engines you could rebuild on a workbench for the next 50 years. Compare that to a modern homeowner saw, which is mostly plastic, sealed up, and designed to be thrown away the moment it fails. That difference is exactly why collectors are paying real money for the old iron today. And the prices have been climbing, because every year there are fewer of these saws left. There's an entire underground of collectors out there, and most people walk right past it. There are dedicated websites, reference books, national meets where grown men haul rusty saws across state lines, and forums where a single rare model can start a bidding war in the comments. The man who built much of this hobby, a collector named Mike Akers, runs a reference site that has become the Bible of the community. But before you start dreaming about the fortune in your shed, you need to understand one thing the treasure hunt videos won't tell you, because it is the difference between what a saw is listed for and what it actually sells for. Let's talk about why these old saws were built to outlive their owners. In the muscle saw era, a chainsaw was a serious professional investment. Loggers depended on them for their livelihood, so the saws were engineered to be repaired forever, not replaced. The crankcases were cast from magnesium, which is both incredibly light and incredibly strong. The cylinders were often plated in chrome so they would resist wear for decades. The bearings, the clutches, the carburetors, all of it could be pulled apart, cleaned, and rebuilt with basic hand tools. A logger could drop his saw in a creek, dry it out, and run it for another 20 years. These were not delicate tools. Some of the biggest muscle saws weighed 30, 40, even 50 pounds, and swung bars long enough to fell old-growth timber. They roared, they vibrated your teeth loose, and the men who ran them treated them like a good truck, something you maintained and kept running for a lifetime, not something you replaced every few seasons. At its peak, McCulloch was building saws by the hundreds of thousands, and every major brand was pushing for more displacement, more horsepower, and more bar length. Now here's what changed. Starting in the late 1970s and accelerating through the 80s, the industry consolidated and cost-cutting took over. Tighter emissions rules, cheaper overseas labor, and a brutal race to the bottom on price reshaped everything. McCulloch, once the king of American chainsaws, was sold and resold, and eventually the brand's production moved overseas, and the name ended up slapped on cheap homeowner units that shared nothing with the legends that came before. Homelite passed through corporate hands, from Textron to John Deere to the group that owns it today, and the fire-breathing professional saws gave way to the light plastic models you see on the hardware store shelf. The era of the rebuildable, all-metal saw quietly ended, and that is precisely what makes the survivors valuable. They stopped making them, the loggers wore most of them out, and the ones that got tucked into a shed and forgotten are exactly the ones collectors are hunting for today. So which specific models are actually worth chasing? Some of these you might recognize. At least one of them is probably hiding in a garage on your street right now. Let's count them down, starting with the ones you are most likely to actually find. Number 12, the David Bradley. This was Sears' house brand saw, sold through their catalogs and stores for years, which means they turn up constantly at estate sales and in old barns. Most sell in the range of $40 to a few $100s, but that's the whole point. It is the everyman saw that proves even a humble find has a buyer waiting for it. Number 11, the vintage Homelite XL and Super XL. These were wildly popular, so common examples are modest, but a clean, complete, running one with its original bar and decals will still turn heads, which brings up the rule that governs this entire market. Condition is everything, and I'll come back to that, because it can multiply the value of your saw 5 or 10 times over. Number 10, early Poulin saws, the ones built before the brand became a big box staple. Number 9, Pioneer, the Canadian workhorses with a small but devoted following. Number 8, Partner, the Swedish saws prized for their engineering and their distinctive design. These mid-tier collectibles typically trade from around $100 to several $100s, depending on rarity and condition. Now we start to climb. Number 7, the McCulloch 170, a genuine piece of muscle saw history, with confirmed sales around $220. Number 6, the McCulloch 890 Gear Drive, a big heavy brute that is sold for roughly $385. Number 5, the Homelite 750, and here is where I have to tell you the truth that other videos won't. You will see a Homelite 750 listed online for $1,500, and you will get excited. But listed is not sold. That $1,500 saw sat there, and it did not find a buyer. This is the single biggest trap in the entire hobby. Anyone can ask any price they want. What matters is the realized price, the number someone actually paid. So when you research your own saw, you look only at completed, sold listings, never at the wishful asking prices, or you will fool yourself badly. Number 4, the Stihl Contra from 1959. It was a landmark design in Stihl's history and a true prize for a serious collector, especially a clean early example. Number 3, the mighty McCulloch ED-S P125, a muscle saw monster of roughly 123 cubic centimeters, with a rebuilt example confirmed sold at $531. But it gets bigger than that, because the rarest saws of all barely ever reach the public. The oddball prototypes, the low production professional monsters, the pristine survivors that still wear their original paint. Those trade quietly between collectors who have been chasing them for decades, sometimes for more than the headline saws you see listed online. Which brings us to number 2, the big bore McCulloch Super 250 and its gear drive cousins, the enormous saws that built the muscle saw legend and can still stop a collector in his tracks. And number 1, the crown jewel of the entire collector world, the Stihl 090. The 090 and its gear drive version, the 090G, is the biggest production chainsaw style ever built, with a monstrous engine of around 137 cubic centimeters. Collectors simply call it the King. A working 090 in average dusty condition regularly sells for around $1,000, and clean or rebuilt examples have changed hands for closer to $2,000. This is the saw behind the promise I made at the very start. If one of these is sitting in your shed, you are not looking at junk. You are looking at a $1,000 machine wearing 40 years of dust. So how do you know if the saw in your shed is one of these, or just scrap metal? Here is exactly what to look for, step by step. First, find the model number. On most old saws, it is stamped right into the metal or printed on a small tag, usually on the crankcase, on the recoil starter housing, or down near the base of the handle. Wipe away the grime and look closely. Write down the brand and that number because it is the single most important piece of information you can have. Second, check the material. Pick the saw up. If it is surprisingly heavy and clearly made of metal, magnesium, and aluminum, cold and solid in your hands, you are likely holding something from the golden era. If it is light and mostly plastic, it is probably a modern throwaway with little collector value. Third, and this is where the real money is won or lost, assess completeness and condition. Is the original guide bar still attached? Is the chain there? Are the decals, the badges, and the model tags still intact and readable? A complete saw with its original bar, clean decals, and good compression can be worth 5 or 10 times more than a stripped, seized hulk of the same model. Here is a quick way to judge that compression. Grab the starter cord and give it a slow, steady pull. If there is real resistance, a firm pushback against your hand, that is a good sign. The engine still has life left in it. Now, an important truth about running versus not running. A saw that fires up and cuts is worth the most, no question about it. But do not assume a dead saw is worthless. Many collectors specifically hunt for non-running saws as restoration projects, and for the rare parts hidden inside them, so even a seized model can be worth real money if it's uncommon enough. That dead old McCulloch in the corner might be the exact piece someone has been searching for. Once you know what you have, where do you actually sell it? And where did all these collectors come from in the first place? Remember that underground I mentioned. It is real, and it is remarkably organized. There is the Chainsaw Collector's Corner, the reference community built by Mike Akers, whose guidebook has reportedly sold more than 10,000 copies. There are international collector sites, active forums on Arborist's site where rare models spark bidding wars, and Facebook groups with thousands of members trading, buying, and showing off their finds. That is where the real prices are set, and where a saw you thought was garbage can find a buyer who has been hunting for it for years. One word of caution when you sell. These old saws are heavy and soaked in old oil and fuel, so shipping can be a real headache, which is why so many of them change hands at local meets and swap events, which loops us right back to that shed. And there is one final twist that catches almost everyone off guard. The saws that look the most worthless are sometimes the most valuable of all. A crusty, odd-looking old saw that a casual seller would toss on a yard sale table for $20 can be a rare model a collector will quietly pay several hundred for, precisely because so few of them survived. The ugly, unloved ones got thrown away by the thousands, and scarcity is exactly what drives the price up. Here's the bigger picture. They are never going to make saws like this again. The magnesium cases, the rebuildable engines, the entire all-metal muscle saw era, that world is gone, replaced by sealed plastic and planned obsolescence. Every single year, more of these old survivors get scrapped, which means the ones that remain only get rarer and more valuable. The collectors already know this. Now you do too. So before you haul that old chainsaw to the dump, take 2 minutes, find the model number, and look up the completed sold listings. You might be throwing away $100. You might be throwing away $1,000. Go check your shed, your garage, and your grandfather's old barn, because the treasure may have been sitting there in plain sight the whole time. If you found this useful, hit subscribe for more stories about the hidden value in the things everyone else forgets about.